Boxingego here. If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon on the top of your screen to get notified when the latest new content drops. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Today is Monday, which means my segment, Boxingego MMD, Monday Mail Day. I picked a lot of questions, so I'm going to jump right into it. Boxing is turning up. There's a lot of good fights on the horizon. The one you see on the screen, Kell Brook, IBF champion versus Errol Spence Jr. And I'm looking forward to it. So make sure you guys like and subscribe, support the movement, and a lot of content coming. 2017 definitely has me working, and it's enjoyable. I put a thumb up next to the questions I'll be answering. Let's go. First question is from Straw Hat Luffy RDC. Happy birthday, Ego. I'm a big fan. I really do look up to you and your work ethic. Thank you. I appreciate that, and everyone that left birthday messages. Keep up the great work. But by the end of 2019, who do you think will be your #1 welterweight? Damn, 2019 is a little bit far. Because, you know what I mean, there might even be a new person. You know what I mean, Terrence Crawford or somebody might move up by then. So that's a little bit too far out. But by the end of the year, I'm going to just shorten up your question and kind of alter it a little bit. By the end of the year, I see probably Errol Spence Jr. Obviously, he has to get past Kell Brook, which is definitely a tall order and a tough fight and his biggest fight. But if he can go from fighting the level of opposition he has fought, Chris Algieri, Leonard Bundu, and a bunch of other guys like Castro from Mexico and people that we don't really know of, the guy that Danny Garcia fought before Keith Thurman, Samuel Vargas, and if he can go from that and turn it up and beat Kell Brook, especially in dramatic fashion, then he is the #1 welterweight to me. 2019 again is a little bit too far out. I don't know what will happen. You know what I mean? We're only 3 months into 2017, so it's a little bit premature for all that. Next question is from Fresh BX. First off, I'd like to say I appreciate your perspective when you do any video. Thank you. I think it's very logical and unbiased, unlike most people who you may come across that talk boxing. I know what you mean. My thing with Thurman Garcia is people speak as if the fight wasn't close, as if Thurman outclassed him. Danny arguably won the last 3 rounds. From rounds 1 to 9, let's say Danny got 2. Is that not a 7-5 fight? Fight was closer than people make it seem. Unfortunately, people's hate for Danny and his father plays into a factor on how they judge a fight. I think if Danny would have been given the decision, it wouldn't have been a robbery, how people make it seem. How do you feel in regards to that? Would a decision for Danny be a robbery, or is there a legit argument for that? Let me just keep going and then I'll come back to your question. The next time you speak to Demetrius Andrade, can you ask him why his performance was so underwhelming against Jack Kukale? I often hear you talk about your previous job you had at Lowe's, I think it was. I've had several jobs. I've worked since I was 14 and I just had a birthday yesterday. And I wanted to know what made you decide to leave that job and pursue what you're doing now. Aside, obviously, for your love of boxing, what steps did you take into getting your YouTube channel up and running? And what led you to believe this was something you could actually do as a career? Wow, some good questions. First part of your question, I had Keith Thurman winning. I think he didn't do himself any favors by switching the game plan, because I thought people get mad, but I thought he won, but he could have won in a more dramatic fashion, because to me, what he was doing in the first 2 rounds, for example, was his best work. And Danny Garcia didn't really have an answer for that and seemed immediately gun shy with the awkward in and out movement, the power, and couldn't necessarily time him. So if he would have kept that up, he would have beat Danny Garcia more dramatically. However, he, in the effort to not take risk or minimize a risk, he ended up kind of getting on his bicycle, using a lot of movement, and then just occasionally peeking his head in and bop bop and then getting out. So he played it safe, which ensures that he didn't get knocked out. But I don't think the risk kind of was higher when he switched the game plan, because Danny Garcia really didn't have an answer for what he was doing in the first 2 rounds. You know what I'm saying? The first 2-3 rounds. So, like I said, Floyd Mayweather teaches us that if a game plan is working, you stick to it. The only way you should derive from that game plan is if somebody pulls you out of it. So I really don't understand, like when Oscar De La Hoya was clearly beating Felix Tito Trinidad's ass, and then he decides to quote unquote run or use excessive movement towards the back half, and then, you know what I mean, you just give some people leverage to argue the other way, because it's just a weird game plan. You know what I'm saying? So you got to fight the right type of fights. Timothy Bradley, I even talked to him recently, a month ago, a couple weeks ago. He said his hardest fight was Ruslan Provodnikov. That guy, if he could fight and outbox Juan Manuel Marquez, who is one of my favorite counterpunchers, a great counterpuncher with power, then I really feel that he could outbox Ruslan Provodnikov, who comes in a straight line and has no defense. You know what I mean? It's a fun fighter to watch, but those are the facts from what I've seen. So he made that fight more difficult. So I don't really understand why certain fighters make fights harder than they need to be, but so be it. So I had Thurman winning. I wouldn't say Garcia won, and I just think he just got off to such a slow start that it didn't benefit him. So I don't know. I wouldn't give Garcia the fight, but I agree. Some people have so much hatred for the Rod Salka and Angel Garcia. Oh, he's a bitch ass nigga, I speak the truth, and all this stuff that they get overly emotional when the fight became closer. But I think the fight became closer, a lot closer, based on, again, Keith Thurman switching his gears, because that allowed Danny Garcia back into the fight, because he slowed his tempo. You know what I'm saying? But it was closer than some people said, but I still had Thurman winning. Next part of your question. Yeah, if I talk to Boo Boo, I'll try to ask him why his performance is underwhelming. And see, that's the thing. People aren't invincible when they have this inactivity. Like, he fought Willie Nelson, was supposed to fight Jack Kukale last year, and they couldn't sign the contracts in time, so that probably would have been better, because he would have started 2017 fresh and maybe be looking at a Jared Swift Hurd, who just became a champion, or the Charlo Hatley winner. You know what I mean? Instead of fighting the Kukale in Germany, you should have did it when you had already had a fight that year. So might be jet lag, might be ring rust, I'm not sure, but if I talk to him, I'll try to bring that up. And the last question, you said my previous job. Yeah, I've had many jobs. Lowe's, I worked at Best Buy, Sears, different stuff like that. And as far as Lowe's, since that's the one you brought up, I was there for like 6 years, and I was promoting, and I moved to a new store that they had just built from the ground up. We built the store, like, it was basically, just think of a whole Lowe's like warehouse, big box, and it was completely empty. So we got to see it was just a ground. That's all they had. And then they had to put the beams up and the racking and stuff. So it was a long process. But ultimately, the reason I didn't work there is because I got laid off. They laid off like 2,000 people. This was a while ago, though. This is like 7 years ago or something like that. And they laid off like 1,700 to 2,100 people. And it started from the top. It was all salary managers. I didn't have seniority because I had just promoted into that position, and I have no kids, and I wasn't married, so the store manager felt I was probably the easiest to displace. Like, I could bounce back the easiest. So me and another guy from that particular store got cut, and then later they cut even more people, but that's another story. So it's all fate. That's how fate happened. I've always been a boxing fan, and I don't know what made me do it, but I was doing, like, I do video directing and editing before this. So I've always been into like arts and sports and entertainment and stuff like that. So I had the channel. It was called Egos World 1. So it was just going to be a collection of everything. I have several videos that have been on World Star that I've directed and or edited. Things like that. Millions of views. So I was doing that. And I've always been a fan of boxing, and I believe it was Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. versus Sergio Martinez was a fight I was really looking forward to as a lifelong boxing fan. And I just randomly, I said, you know what, let me just do a prediction. So I just started talking about it. Don't know why, don't know what made me do it. It was just a fight I was looking forward to. And then it just really picked up from there. People started, hey, talk about this fight, and leaving comments. At first it was real slow. You know what I mean? I'll go a whole day and have like 32 views at the end of the day, or 72 views, like under 100. So it's like discouraging, because you're like, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, is this even worth it? But for whatever reason, me being the person I am, I just kept doing it, and the vehicle got bigger. It's like a snowball effect, got bigger and bigger. And now this is what I do full time. I don't work anywhere else. So just got to be passionate, consistent, and don't compare yourself. That's the worst thing. Like, I watch channels, like when I was coming up, I don't really watch many now, but because I'm doing my own thing. But when I was coming up, I would watch like the Ellie Sekbacks and whoever else. There was a couple channels that I don't even think are around anymore. So I'd watch them and things like that. But always be unique, always be different. And like some people try to come in the game hating on the next person. I never did that. I seen Ellie. He was doing his thing. He had a good amount of views. Not as many as he has now, but he still had good viewership and stuff. He was like the biggest dude doing it. But I'm not gonna throw shots and let him do what he does and I do what I do. So people need to stay in their lane. Don't compare yourself. I was never worried about what he was doing or whoever, the other boxing channels. I was just worried about my particular lane and what I was doing. So hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of background. Next question is from Errol Smith. What's up, Ego? What up? What's going on with Pacquiao? Don't know. Why doesn't he just retire if he ain't planning on fighting any of these top welterweights? What do you think is going to end up happening with him? The why he doesn't retire part is very easy. Dollar bills, y'all. That's really what it is. I mean, Pacquiao's still a name. He's done a lot for the sport. He's done a lot in his career. And they can, in essence, milk the consumer. Like, you look at it, Pacquiao fought Jesse Vargas for the WBO belt, which I don't even think many people were just dying to see that, right? And it still did 300,000 pay-per-view buys on Top Rank pay-per-view. Golovkin just had his most meaningful fight of his career. To his own admission, he said that was the biggest test for him, and it turned out to be a great fight. They put Chocolatito on the card to try to enhance it. They put Carlos Cuadras, a former Chocolatito opponent, on the card. They put Andy Lee, a puncher, on the card. They put Ryan Martin on the card, and it still did less than 200,000. And Pacquiao did 300,000. So, I mean, that tells you something. That tells you that Pacquiao, even though Pacquiao Vargas was his lowest pay-per-views, I think to date, his lowest like viewership or pay-per-view buys, but at the end of the day, he still did better than Golovkin, who's like kind of a newer star. You know what I'm saying? So like at the end of the day, Pacquiao could still make some money in the sport. So I think that's why he's kind of here. Is like he could fight Jeff Horn and still get a good paycheck for it. Right? That senator stuff, I'm sure he gets paid, but it ain't like no boxing paycheck where you fight Timothy Bradley 3 and people didn't even want to see it and you got guaranteed $20 million. So I think that's why Pacquiao's still fighting, because he can still generate way bigger paydays than he can do in the Senate. And, you know what I mean? He's still a good fighter, good enough to beat those guys, but I don't know if he's willing to test himself against the cream of the crops, the Kell Brook, Errol Spence winner, the Keith Thurman, you know what I mean? The guys that are really going to be young, hungry lions and something you have to put that work to. We haven't we haven't seen that aggressiveness with Pacquiao since who knows when. You know what I mean? He hasn't had a knockout since 2009, so I think he's just kind of hanging out and looking for a big payday. Like, you know what I mean? If he fights Floyd again, maybe he'll try to get up for that, but until then, just kind of milk the system and get good colossal paychecks. It's just not as good as fighting the top competition, but it's less of a risk. So that's kind of what I've seen. So I don't know. I think he's fighting Jeff Horn, and then Aaron wants him to fight again this year, but I want to see him fight Terrence Crawford. The next question is from the Free Def. What should Rigo do to get them fights? I think his inactivity and impossibility to find an opponent will kill his career. And name 2 boxers that you think can beat him. Also, who you think has the best amateur career from active fighters? Good questions. RIGONDEAUX, he's probably like 35, 36. I think he just has to be more vocal. Like, you know what I mean? Start going to these Leo. Like, I was at the Leo Santa Cruz Carl Frampton Part 2. He needs to be there. You know what I mean? Do like Edislandi Lara, hop on stage on him. You know what I mean? When he did that to Canelo, he has to do something. And, you know what I mean? Instead of keeping it cordial, like, it's cool going at him on social media, but, you know what I mean? Unless you're like Floyd Mayweather, Conor McGregor status, sometimes those tweets and stuff don't always make headlines when you're calling someone out. So I think he just has to get more aggressive with his call outs as he ages and gets older, because staying out of the ring is deadly. You know what I mean? There's not too many guys that can take a year and a half off and come back and look better. You know what I mean? It's different sparring and just keeping in shape and working out versus fighting a professional fight, especially if your opponent's been active, like Vasyl Lomachenko versus Nicholas Walters. Lomachenko had been active whilst Nicholas Walters was on the sidelines. They hadn't fought since Jason Sosa over a year ago and gained weight. So I think he just has to get more aggressive. You know what I mean? Really get at Rock Nation. Be like, man, you got to make these fights, make them quick. The number 2 boxers that can beat him, I don't really have 2 boxers that can beat him. Lomachenko, maybe, if the fight is at a higher weight. I think if the fight's at 130, I think he could beat Guillermo Rigondeaux, because I think he'd be too big at 130 for Rigondeaux. But if it's at like a lower catch weight, 126 or whatever, 128, then Rigondeaux definitely has a shot. But I think the further up in weight fighters go, the more they would be stretched. Like, you know what I mean? You could be a great fighter like Floyd Mayweather, but he would probably have trouble at 160 against a massive puncher just because they're hitting so hard and you're not the biggest dude. You know what I mean? Same thing with, you know what I mean, Andre Ward, Kovalev. They could be great at light heavyweight, but if they start fighting top class cruiserweights or heavyweight, then it's a different ball game. You know what I mean? So I can't think of 2. The only person I can think of may be able to beat him is Lomachenko at a higher weight, like at Lomachenko's current weight or something, possibly. And who has the best amateur career from active fighters? I would clearly say Lomachenko or Rigondeaux. That's the people that come to mind. But there's some up-and-comers like the Shakur Stevenson, Oscar Valdez, who had good amateur careers, and I think they could do well as pros. Errol Spence if he beats Kell Brook. Next question, Aaron Wright. Yo, Ego, what's good? Happy birthday. Thank you. After watching Kell Brook's first fight with Carson Jones, I decided to pick Errol Spence Jr. in a stoppage. In light of that fight with Carson Jones, how do you see the fight with Errol? Now, Carson Jones, he came back and he avenged that loss, or he avenged that tough fight or whatever, and stopped Carson Jones. So you got to take that for what it's worth. It was a couple years ago, so he's become a champion since that. So I wouldn't really base the Errol Spence Jr. fight necessarily off of that, because I mean, you even look at the Sinchenko fight. Sinchenko hurt Kell Brook in that fight before Kell Brook stopped Sinchenko. So I mean, you learn stuff as you go. You're fighting Sean Porters and things like that. Golovkin has probably helped him in the experience department. I still would lean towards Errol Spence Jr. I have reasons for it, and I'm going to do a 7 reasons most likely. So I'll detail why I feel that way. But I think just Errol, I think it's his time. He's the fresher one, because Kell Brook he's fought. His resume is not the greatest, but he does have 2 fights that were taxing, like the Sean Porter. Sean Porter's a tough out for anybody because he's real physical. You know what I mean? I've seen him do training. He's in like a hyperbolic chamber, like altitude chamber, and he was just punching, and you can't breathe the same because it's like it's dense in there, and the oxygen is like being in the mountains, and you could set it to different altitudes or whatever, and he was just punching until you could pass out from that, you know what I mean, because you're lacking oxygen to the brain. And he was just going ham in there. I got it on video. So Sean Porter is a physical fight. Even though Kell Brook won the fight, he's still physical, because Sean Porter's a physical fighter. Kell Brook got roughed up in the fight a little bit, got a cut, and had to hold this man off for 12 rounds. Same thing with Golovkin, a bigger, strong guy. We see he has power. He got the eye injury. So those are taxing fights. Errol Spence, people complain because his resume, and I mean rightfully so, his resume is not what he's capable of. He hasn't fought the names that will really show what he's made of, but he hasn't gotten banged up like that. He's never been stopped, things like that. So I have a couple different reasons. Stay tuned for the 7 reasons. The next question is from the Secular Terrier. Why is it that all people who thought Andre Ward won are willing to admit that it was a close fight, as opposed to the people who thought Kovalev won? That's a good question. And I think we already know what it is, because a lot of people, bottom line is, a lot of these people who are fans are radical fans, and they're casual fans and things like that. And I'm not saying if you thought Kovalev won, you don't know shit about boxing or you're a casual fan, but there are different groups that are more radical as fans. You know what I mean? You never, like, if you listen to my channel, like, you guys can try to call my bluff. I want someone to try to call my bluff. But listen to my fights, like Golovkin, Jacobs, Ward, Kovalev. Listen to all the realist breakdowns and my post-fight breakdowns. I really say what I've seen, and I'm not like, oh, it was a robbery. I don't even use that word robbery unless I really feel like the there was no way the person won. You know what I mean? That's the only time I really use the term robbery. I might reference how other people are calling it a robbery, but me, myself, I don't really say that because I call it what it is. Ward Kovalev, close fight. It was a fight of halves. Kovalev did better in the first half. Ward did better in the second half, period. Golovkin Jacobs, similar. They were both game and they were both trying. I mean, you can hold it against Jacobs because he got knocked down, and we never really seen Golovkin so visibly hurt that something happened where he was like got knocked down or he fell backwards into the ropes or anything. But it was still clearly a tough fight for Golovkin because he didn't just bum rush and bulldoze Golovkin like Willie Monroe. So clearly Jacobs was in there doing something that he had to respect. So I think we know what it is when it comes to Ward Kovalev. A lot of people, bottom line, they didn't like Ward to begin with. So naturally, swing rounds, a close fight, you're going to go over the top and say Kovalev won and give the benefit of the doubt to the fighter you wanted to win, that you like, that you haven't actually been slandering. Just like we seen with Ward when he fought Brand, and 2 days later, Kathy Duva Main Events had the press conference in Los Angeles, and they're like, oh, Ward's a no-show. I don't know if we have a fight. I'm scared. We want to put these tickets on sale. And then you had idiots making videos and writing articles basically saying Ward was afraid. He just fought, literally just fought like a day or two before this press conference, and because he was not there, they said he was scared. He was pulling out of the fight, and I'm sorry, people. We wanted this to be both fighters, but we don't know what's happening. And they made it like Ward was ducking or pulling out of the fight and uncertain. That wasn't the case, because Kathy Duva later got on wax and said we had correspondence with Rock Nation. They said Ward was not coming. He was not going to be in attendance. So why'd you play people and create this hype about we want to sell tickets as if it was a known thing that Ward was going to be there? So again, in a close fight, you already know what it is. People that were writing those articles and making videos, you think they're going to try to be like, that was a close fight. No. But a lot of people, and I can't speak for everyone, but a lot of people I've seen that did pick Ward, they're admitting it was a close fight. Kovalev is a good fighter, period. Like me. I told you that. I don't have a problem with either guy. I've met both of them. I've been to both of their events. I covered Ward Kovalev. I don't have a problem with none of the fighters. It was a close fight. Deal with it. Next question is from Broly28. Greetings from the Bronx, Ego. Next time you're in town, I'll take you to Sin City to look at some chicks sliding on the pole. But on to boxing. Wow. Do you think that this is a lose-lose for Spence? If he destroys Brook early, they'll say Brook was damaged goods after the Triple G fight. If he goes the distance, they'll say that Spence couldn't hang with the shot fighter. If Spence loses in any way, they'll say he was a hype job. This is shit I'm already hearing, and it's comical. What are your thoughts? I mean, again, you're always going to have certain factions in boxing, and there are a demographic of people who are just extremist and radical, and everything, this fighter's a bitch, this person's on peds and steroids, accusations that are wild, this fight was a robbery. You know what I mean? It's like, well, are you even a boxing fan? You sound like all you do is have anger towards everything. This is a mismatch, cherry pick bullshit, things like that. So I'm not really even worried about that, because people are going to say what they want. But at the end of the day, I mean, actions speak. And Kell Brook, the bottom line is he's undefeated at welterweight. I told you guys, I made a video, it was like daring to be great, right? And I told you how dumb the Amir Khan moving up fight was with the Canelo. And Virgil Hunter just recently said it too. He says, I told Amir Khan that the Canelo fight was stupid, which is what I told you guys, right? I told you that the Kell Brook fight made no sense. I understand that Chris Eubank Jr. fell out and the date was saved and all this bullshit, but it was stupid for Kell Brook to do that. He got a cool paycheck, but he also got his eye destroyed, right? And he has a blemish on his record now. Just to say, oh, hey, I gave Golovkin a tough fight and set the blueprint. I mean, that's cool. You set the blueprint, but we don't know what your eye's going to be like. So how worth it was it for a paycheck and to set the blueprint for 2 rounds and get stopped? You know what I mean? So it is what it is. Those are the unfortunate circumstances, or the circumstances that have happened. It is what it is. But Kell Brook is still the champion at welterweight. He retained that even in losing to Golovkin at a higher division. So he's undefeated. He says he's confident. He says he's going to beat Errol Spence. So there is no excuse for either person. Errol Spence says he's ready for this moment, man down, all this. So He's going into the Lion's Den with his best opponent. So, I mean, a lot of things in boxing, a lot of people are fake. So what they do is try to pad it. They'll say one thing, it's kind of like hedging your bet, and they try to pad it with excuses. Like, I'm going to say all these excuses beforehand, so when this happens, or if my prediction is wrong, then I'm covered. You know what I mean? It's like almost like an insurance. Have you ever played cards or just have car insurance? When you play cards, you can buy insurance. Like if the dealer's showing an ace and like, hey, I might have a blackjack. Do you want to buy insurance? You know what I mean? You can put more chips down and buy insurance just in case he does have a blackjack. That's kind of what it is with the fans. They come up with these bullshit excuses like, oh, Mayweather paid the judges and Kenny Bayless, because they know Pacquiao's going to lose. You know what I mean? So it's like, let me think of these excuses now so I don't have to give Floyd credit when he beats Pacquiao. Oh, it's already 5 years too late. No, it doesn't work like that. 5 years too late. Nobody else other than Marquez was beating Pacquiao. And it is what it is. The fight's happening when it's happening. There are no excuses. And you still had a section of people who were saying Pacquiao was going to knock Floyd out, even 5 years after the first fallout with the drug test. So don't try to think of excuses now. If you're that confident in Pacquiao, stay confident. Same thing with Kell Brook. If you're so confident that he beats Errol Spence, then stop making excuses about the eye and stuff. But people want to have their cake and eat it too, have it both ways. Next question, ZP Goldman. Hey, Ego, thanks for taking the time to answer the question last week. 2 questions. 1, have you heard anything about Rigondeaux and potentially when he fights next when his next fight is? 2, do you think that the UFC needs to be a part of the Mayweather-McGregor fight? For 50% of Conor's check, what do they offer him in return? 1, Rigondeaux, not sure. I think his fight with his mandatory Moises Flores, aka Chucky, is going to a purse bid in the next month. So they should get that scheduled. I don't know if they're trying to put it on a Cotto's next. I don't even know what's happening with Cotto, to be honest. So I think that's the goal, is to still fight the person he was supposed to fight on the Cotto versus Kirkland card. Number 2, does UFC need to be part of Mayweather-McGregor fight? I think they have to, almost, because Conor McGregor is not his own boss, and he's inked to UFC. So I'm pretty sure in the contract you have to get permission to be excused to compete in something else, which is similar, a fighting combat sport, boxing, without their permission. You know what I'm saying? That's what happens when you're under contract. They can kind of, you don't have complete creative control with your career. Like, oh, even appearing in Call of Duty games, just depending on what the contract spells out, Conor McGregor may have to get permission to make appearances in a movie or whatever, because the UFC, that's their investment, and they have to make sure there's no conflict of interest there or anything like that. You know what I mean? They might even get a cut of Conor McGregor's money when he does features on like Call of Duty games or something. So I think they have to, just because they're under contract, and I don't think they're going to not be a part of something that would generate that much money. I really don't see how the UFC would opt to not be involved. Who wouldn't want to get a piece of the pie, if you will? And the last part of your question, for 50% of Conor's check, what do they offer him in return? They don't have to offer him anything. I think they'll do the regular things that they do, have posters and maybe do a UFC embedded. But other than that, he's under contract. They don't have to offer him shit. They're from their stance, they're like, hey, we gave you the opportunity. Our network, our entity signed you. And even though it's your personality, you still got popping because of us fighting other UFC fighters, fighting in our organization. That's why you're popping. You're not self-made. You're kind of self-made in the sense of you're helping to build and sell, and you're growing a fan base based on your attitude and personality. But it was all established based on him being in the UFC organization. When he was fighting in whatever the MMA organization is, when he was fighting in Ireland, he wasn't as big. So, you know what I mean? You have to give the UFC some credit for helping and putting the energy and money behind him to even get him the exposure to the point where people now know his name and stuff like that. So that's what they're giving him for 50%. I mean, I don't think 50% is right. I think that's a bit egregious, a bit excessive. But I mean, they, to a degree, helped build his career. You know what I mean? I can't say it's, I don't know. They have a part of his success. That's bottom line. Like me, it's a little bit different. Like with YouTube, I got on here and just started. I'm more self-made than Conor McGregor. Like I didn't have. I mean, you could say the YouTube platform, but they don't really sweat you. They don't tell me what to do. They only tell me what not to do. Like you can't use Drake's music or copyrighted music or stuff like that. But they don't really force you to do this and that. So it's a little bit different. Next question is from Eriko Shimada. Yo, Ego, love the channel. You keep me updated in the boxing world. I gotta ask about Canelo and his power. Do you think it will carry up to the higher weight classes? Yes. I mean, Cesar Chavez Jr., I believe he has fought fighters with more power, at least equal to that of Canelo's. Yeah, probably. And if you think about it, he could never really hurt even Cotto or Lara in the fights and have them all wobbled, and he's mostly knocked out fighters smaller than him. I mean, I agree, but there's a couple things I got to say to that. I do think he hurt Cotto and Lara, but there's different levels of being hurt. And see, this is what I try to tell people. A lot of people in boxing, they don't know subtle cues to look for in boxing, body language, certain changes. Like you could get hurt to the body, and then all of a sudden, like Curtis Stevens hurt David Lemieux, but some people might not have seen it because it's really quick and you got to know what you're looking for. Curtis Stevens threw a body shot at David Lemieux and he immediately tucked his elbow down to his body. He brought it down real close. That's kind of wincing. That's showing that body shot had an effect on you. Now, David Lemieux wasn't in the ring looking all stupid and like falling back, and like he didn't do like what Keith Thurman do, who was maybe even more hurt, versus Luis Collazo. He wasn't running around the ring like and like evading, but he was still hurt. So there's different severities of being hurt. A lot of these fighters, the whole goal is they're tough. They've been fighting their whole life. They don't want to show weakness. They don't want to show you that, oh fuck, you got me. The only time when people are really doing that is when it's like unbearable. It's like they have no choice but to get knocked down because their body shuts down. Or what Keith Thurman did versus Collazo, how he ran around, he had to do that because he was that badly hurt. You know what I mean? He couldn't tolerate it or fake it. You know what I mean? But I think he probably got hurt versus Sean Porter, and he wasn't as hurt. So, you know what I mean? There's different severities of being hurt. I do think Canelo hurt Cotto, and I think he hurt Lara. And the evidence is, to me, Cotto was doing enough to look like he was competing, but he wasn't really going for broke with it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I only watched that fight once when it was live, but I seen Cotto. He's like putting punches together, but he wasn't really taking massive risk. You know what I mean? To really try to get Canelo out of there. He was just doing enough to kind of save face. Kind of like Victor Postal versus Terrence Crawford. Victor Postal looked like he was trying to cut off the ring, but he wasn't really going for broke. Like James Kirkland goes for broke each and every time. That's why sometimes he gets knocked out. Sometimes he gets a knockout like Glenn Tapia, because he's willing to do that. He's willing to just fuck it. Either I'm getting knocked out or you're getting knocked out. Look at the Glenn Tapia fight and the El Perro Angulo fight. Perfect examples. Kirkland's like, I'm here and that's my style, blah, blah, blah. But Lara, his evidence was he started using excessive amounts of movement when Canelo started slicing up his body. He started becoming really evasive and reducing his offense exponentially. So to me, I think he was hurt. But I mean, I agree to a degree. Canelo has fought a lot of smaller guys. In fact, I can't think of one person that he fought that was known with power and strength that was much bigger than him. The closest, maybe Angulo, maybe Kirkland, but he's taller than Kirkland. Angulo is about his height, maybe, but those guys are not much bigger than him. They're not taller than him and bigger than him like Chavez. So I don't know. But the other thing is, the flip side is this: Canelo might even look better at 160 plus, because it looked like towards the end of his run at 54, 55, looks like he was tapping himself, to make weight. And sometimes when you do that, you start depleting muscle and you could become a little bit more lethargic, if you think. Right? Things like that. So he might look fresher at this new weight, because I've seen that with guys. Like they're I've seen it both ways. I've seen guys like Broner when he was at 30 and 35, people couldn't really deal with his combinations and his power. When he moved up past 40, 45, 47, 44, whatever he fought Sean Porter, his power was more handleable. They could handle his power better. The bigger guys, the Maidanas, even the Paulie Malignaggi. You know what I'm saying? So I've seen it happen that way, but I've also seen guys who actually look like crispier at when they move up. So it goes both ways. Next question is from Nathaniel Estrada. Ego, Jorge Linares got the W tonight in a superb performance. I agree. Article on the website, boxingego.com. And it seems everybody wants to see him fight Mikey Garcia, including Garcia himself via Showtime. How do you see that matchup, and who you got if it were to go down? Keep up the good work, Ego. I clearly got to pick my dude, Mikey Garcia. I like Jorge Linares. Now, this is the thing with Linares. To me, when he's boxing and he's on, he's like a textbook, picture-perfect boxer. Like when he's letting his hands go, throwing combinations, it looks he does it with flair and finesse, like bop, 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 and he just looks really good. However, the reason I think Mikey Garcia is because I think Mikey Garcia is big and bigger. He's a big puncher and he's a technician. And what I've seen from Linares is in both fights with Anthony Corolla, who I never even really rated like that, but you know what I mean, he was a name, whatever. I don't really think he's all that. Like, I don't think he was one of the top British. I think guys like Kell Brook, Caleb Smith, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, I think those are all stronger British fighters. Even Lee Selby, you know what I mean? Guys like that. So I never really rated Anthony Corolla like that. But whatever, he has heart and things like that. And even in those fights, which I would never compare Corolla to a Mikey Garcia in terms of talent, Linares seemed like he gassed out in spots. He was very dominant in his fight yesterday with Linares, but it just seemed like he gassed out. You can't gas out with Mikey Garcia because you'll get gassed out of the fucking ring. You know what I mean? You've seen what happened to Dejan's Latichin. And I covered that fight live, and I was like I was watching it in the seat, and I was like, whoa, oh my God. Like, he just brutalized a champion. His first fight at that weight. He fought at 140 in a tune-up fight, but that was his first fight at lightweight, and he just demolished the champion, who was a 90% KO guy, 90% knockout ratio. So, I mean, I just got to go with Mike Garcia. I think he could do a bit more. And Linares, to me, he struggles with certain things. Like Antonio DeMarco, when you show that Mexican heart and you just put him in the trenches, he seems the most uncomfortable. And I think Mikey Garcia has the ability to be a boxer puncher, but he can switch it up more. And I was really impressed with Dejan's Latichin, and to be honest, that fight, because Mikey Garcia showed that he could turn it up. I think Dejan maybe is a southpaw, and a lot of smart fighters, Mikey Garcia, Floyd Mayweather, they handle southpaws good. You know what I mean? Amir Khan, even Adrian Broner. And what they do is they increase their aggression. Like, you look at Broner, my favorite Broner performance that he's had was versus Antonio DeMarco. DeMarco was a man at lightweight, and Broner demolished him. Southpaw. Broner was extremely aggressive in that fight, right? Floyd Mayweather versus Pacquiao versus Zab Judah. He got aggressive in those fights, and that's kind of what you have to do, and that's what Mikey Garcia did. So it shows me his level of intelligence fighting a southpaw and Dejan's Latichin, and he got aggressive. So seeing that he could do that with a 90% knockout artist, right, then I think he would watch enough tape about Linares to know that that's where Linares struggles. If you try to outbox Linares, that might not be your best. But if you pressure him and constantly make him think and overwhelm him, that's where he's at his worst. So I really would easily favor Mikey Garcia. But it's a unification, and Linares definitely deserves another big fight. So maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't think I am. And I think Mikey Garcia would stop Linares. That's just what I really see, and that's just how I see it. And then you even look at the battle of the chins. I think Mikey Garcia probably has a better chin than Linares. So yeah, I would pick Mike Garcia to be aggressive and break Linares down. Plus, he's calling for the fight on Showtime. So, to me, if you're that adamant, no, who's going to call out someone they know they can't beat or they really feel they can't beat? Now, obviously, you don't know until you step in that square circle, but I don't think you'd be that adamant about pushing for a fight that you're definitely certain that you can't beat them. So, to me, Mikey Garcia has already studied Jorge Linares, and he sees something in that style where he feels he likes his chances. That's what it is. Next question, Denzel Horton. What do you think is next for Kell Brook if he loses to Spence? Can't see fighting Khan without a belt, and I don't think any other big name at welterweight will want to either. Nah, I don't know. I disagree. I think the Amir Khan fight would definitely be on the table because Amir Khan, that would help him gain confidence. Because let's say if Errol Spence stops Kell Brook, then Kell Brook will at that point be one stoppage away from the amount of stoppages that Amir Khan has. Amir Khan, I think, has gotten stopped 3 times, was it? Danny Garcia, Bradis Prescott, and versus Canelo Alvarez. So if Golovkin stopped Brook and then Spence stops Brook and beats him, then that kind of brings him, it makes Kell Brook more human. So Amir Khan knows it's a massive money fight, so that will like soften up Kell Brook. So I really can see the Amir Khan fight happening because he's like, you know what I mean? You just lost your last 2 fights in a row. I could definitely beat you and make a lot of money. So I think that would help Khan's confidence in softening up of Brook. And he knows there's still money in that fight because people have wanted to see it. So better late than never. And again, I think if you see Errol Spence, who's this young gun who hasn't really proven his worth with an equal rival in the division, if you see him go in there and step up and beat Kell Brook, then I don't really see why other welterweights wouldn't want to fight Kell Brook at that point. 2 losses in a row. So I disagree. I think welterweights, if Kell Brook looks good and demolishes Spence, then welterweights probably won't want to fight Kell Brook. But if he loses 2 back-to-back, who wouldn't want to fight him? That's like Ronda Rousey lost 2 back-to-back fights by knockout in the UFC. You don't think girls want to fight her now? You know what I mean? There's still a big paycheck. She still has a name, and she just got knocked out twice in a row. So if Kell Brook loses 2 fights in a row, I mean, why would you want to avoid him? He's still a name, he's still a good fighter, etc. Next question, Denzel Horton again. What up, Ego? You seem to have great relationships with many people in the boxing world. Who's someone in the boxing world that you don't get along well with, and why? I don't know. I really keep to myself. I stay away from that. I generally have good relationships with boxers that meet me and hear my coverage because I try to give people fair coverage. I give criticism when I feel it's due. I give praise when I feel it's due. It's that simple. So I don't really have beef with anybody. I don't really have any issues. I mean, the closest thing, and I don't even know him on a personal note, is Victor Ortiz. He blocked me on Instagram. I mean, that's about the close. You know, guys, I'm a tree, bro. I posted a meme or something, and then somebody tagged him, or I tagged him, and I don't remember. This was when I first was starting my Instagram page, and then he ended up blocking me. But I mean, it's really nothing. I don't hate the guy. I don't know him to hate him, and he don't know me. So I don't know. I usually have good relationships with people. I just do my thing, do my job, clock in, clock out. Next question, Cloud 9000 Ego. Who you picking for Porter Berto? Also, if Charlo gets past his mandatory, do you think Boo Boo fight is needed or too early of a risk for him being his first title defense? Nah, I think as far as the Charlo, if you beat Hatley, that's your first mandatory in title defense, you're a champion. That's what it is. You don't have the luxury. People are coming for you. Boo Boo just got a belt in Germany. It wasn't his smoothest performance, but he got the job done in Germany. Now he comes back as a version of the WBA or whatever. So I think that should be a fight. I think they should build that. Plus, it was a fight that was already scheduled to happen on Showtime on the Amir Khan versus Devin Alexander card back in the day, and it fell apart. Demetrius Andrade and team weren't happy with the offer, switching over networks. They thought they were getting lowballed, so it didn't happen. So clear up that history and make it happen. Berto Porter, I don't know who I'm picking. I know both of them, both good fighters. Both guys in shape, both guys have power. You know what I mean? It's really, to me, that's a good fight. That's why I want to go see it. It's a good fight because of the style matchup. Porter smothers you and puts an uncomfortable pressure, which could be bad for Berto, because Berto, in a lot of recent fights, he seems like he has a slower start, right? But at the same time, that coming in kind of reckless at times and super aggressive, Berto has very snappy power, explosive, yep! You know what I mean? And that uppercut is nasty. So if you come in the wrong way on Berto, and he has the spacing and he can get that uppercut off. His uppercut, I was watching the dude train. He can get that uppercut off. If you look at the actual rate of speed from start to finish, just yep, you won't even see it coming, which is what happened to Victor Ortiz. You can say whatever you want about Victor Ortiz. You say he quit in the Maidana fight. He quit versus Collazo. I'm good with that. He almost quit in the Mayweather fight because he was like trying to kiss and make up and potentially get disqualified by headbutting. But I covered the Berto Ortiz 2 live. I was in the first row. And to be honest, he didn't quit that fight. I think he was generally hurt in that fight. Like, he just has a bad rap for quitter-like behavior. But I really think he was really separated from his senses a bit. So it's a dangerous fight for both. It's a good fight for both. Not sure who I'm picking. Next is Cess the MC. HBO working with PBC. Will it ever happen? I'm not going to hold my breath. I mean, it could happen, but I just see HBO seems like they have pride, like too much pride to, like, hey, Al Heyman, we need you. And that's kind of how it is in the business world. People don't want to concede. People don't want to give in. People don't want to, like, go against. They want to hold grudges and petty shit. And the other thing is, HBO seems like they're getting out of the boxing business. They're just, like, only focusing on sure shot action fights. Their commentary, for the most part, is just promoting action-only fights. So, I don't know. I don't really see that being an effective way to mend the relationship with Al Heyman and PBC. So, I'm not going to hold my breath. Maybe it happens. Hopefully it happens. But that's just my thoughts. Next question, Joseph Reyes. Ego, I love your videos, man. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Can you name 5 possible opponents you'd like to see Cotto fight in his comeback? That's hard, man. I don't know. Cotto, I don't even know if he has the desire. But let me just try to freestyle this real quick. Cotto versus Edeslandi Lara. Cotto versus Kirkland. I guess if Kirkland, his nose is okay or whatever. Demetrius Andrade is a 3rd. Jermell Charlo Hatley winner. That's the 4th. And let's say Juan Manuel Marquez. Those are probably my 5 that I want to see. Not really dying to see a Cotto versus Canelo rematch or Cotto versus Mayweather rematch. I think the winner of the first fight would probably beat him again, Mayweather and Canelo. So that's just my opinion. That's what I want to see. Those are solid, sturdy fights for him. Honorable mention would be Austin Trout. Clear that up, because Cotto looked like shit in that fight. He didn't look great to me. So maybe go back, run it back. Austin Trout's still a name. He gave Jermall Charlo, who just knocked out Julian J. Rock Williams. I covered that fight live, and he gave him a tough fight. So he's clearly game and clearly a name. So run it back with Austin Trout. Those are the 5/6 fights that I want to see from Cotto. Next question, Vito7751. Did you hear when Errol Spence told Kell, stand in the middle of the ring, don't run, at the end of their face off at the press conference? Yes, I heard that, of course. That was one of the best parts. And yeah, I mean, it is what it is. He's like, Kell Brook, you want to act big and bad? All right, stand there and trade with me then. You know what I mean? So I think it's just emotions and stuff, but it's not necessarily going to indicate people are going to fight the game plan they want. I remember Floyd Mayweather and Robert Guerrero, they had that little green screen promo video, and then Mayweather was like, I don't know who you beat, I don't know who you lost to. I don't know who you beat, I don't know who you lost to. You easy ass work. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, all right. He's like, fight me. Guerrero was like, fight me in the middle of the ring or something basically like that. And Floyd Mayweather was like, I'm gonna give it to you how you want to get it, how you want it. He's like, all right, stand there and trade. He's like, however you want it, that's how I'm gonna give it to you. But at the end of the day, Floyd's gonna fight his fight. He incorporated lateral movement. He stayed in the pocket with Guerrero. He's gonna fight his own fight. So, I mean, I think that's just kind of pre-fight banter. People aren't gonna. You're not gonna be like, hey, I promised I would sit there and trade if somebody's fucking you up in there. You know what I'm saying? Hey, but I told you at the press conference I wasn't gonna run. I mean, sometimes maybe if you're on some machismo stupid shit, you'll do that. But other than that, the fighter's gonna fight the fight that gives them the best chance of winning. So if you're in there and then somebody's chopping you up on the inside, you're not going to be like, oh, I told you I was going to sit there and trade. Let me just keep banging it out until I get knocked out. Pause. But the press conference was certainly exciting. Next question, Otis Darjan. Hey, Ego, what's your take on Tevin Farmer versus Mikey Garcia? I saw Tevin call out Mikey recently, said he's willing to move up to face him. Do you think Tevin could pull it off? Shout out to my dude, Tevin Farmer. I know him. He knows me. Good fight. Unfortunately, Tevin Farmer has a style that most people are probably going to want to avoid because he's very slick in there. And he can have a crazy defense, but let his offense off too. He's tasted defeat. He got knocked out by Jose Pedraza, who Gervonta Tank Davis recently beat. So all in all, I think Tevin Farmer, he's a great fighter, very skillful, very determined, very focused. But right now, it's not advantageous for fighters. Like, I think Mike Garcia would probably be checking for bigger fights, like guaranteed big paydays and stuff. Like Jorge Linares, he would make more money probably than fighting Tevin Farmer because Linares is a champion. So, you know what I mean? To me, it's just unfortunate because a lot of the skillful guys, for whatever reason, their names aren't as big as the next person. So it's a good fight. I don't know. He would be moving up. Garcia's a technician, but I don't even really think the fight will happen because I haven't really heard since the call out. The call out, it's not like the call out happened yesterday, and I haven't heard any kind of negotiations or anything. And Mike Garcia was just on Showtime talking about fighting Jorge Linares, so I think he's content fighting guaranteed people who are already at lightweight. Next question, Dutch Entertainment, ENT. What up, Ego? What do you think the one main key to victory for Kell Brook and Errol Spence? Hashtag man down. Hashtag the body snatcher part 2. That's tough. I'll probably do an ego weapons, boxing ego weapons. For Errol Spence, just don't let the moment get too big for you. Fight your type of fight. Make adjustments. Go to the body on Kell Brook, who's coming down in weight. And then for Errol Spence, don't be influenced by the hometown crowd and try to do too much against this young, hungry lion. Make sure your defense is very tight, especially coming off of an eye injury and a stoppage loss. Just be tight. And if you get Errol Spence hurt, finish him. Those are probably some of the keys to victory for me. Next question is from Jeff and Taylor Comic. Hey, Ego, some fighters have solid chins, but can fighters have solid bodies? Pause. Like, do you think Kell Brook will be able to absorb Spence's body shots better than previous opponents? I don't know. I don't think there's a such thing as having a solid body per se. I think the best, because if you get hit right, you're gonna be fucked up no matter what. Like if somebody hit, like the way to do it is if someone's about to take a breath, like, and you punch them right in that particular intersection, just and you bop, you're gonna lose breath, like because you're getting punched. As it's just like, imagine trying to take a piss and you sneeze, like you're like peeing. It's gonna fuck up and disrupt your piss. You know what I mean? As you urinate. Or if you're trying to yawn and then somebody puts their finger in your mouth or something. That's the kind of analogy I could think of for a body shot that's well placed and perfectly timed. It doesn't matter because it's like catching you off guard. As you're trying to exhale, you're getting cracked. So it's a painful occurrence. So I don't really think fighters can have a well-trained body. I think the best thing you can do is just be in the best possible shape, get your road work in, get your cardio in, and make sure you're just in peak overall shape to fight battles of attrition or fight against great body punchers like Canelo Alvarez, Errol Spence Jr., Orlando Salido. I think that's, and mentally, I think that's another part of it. Like I feel like your mind will fail probably before your body fails. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you mentally check out, then you're toast. Your body can endure and deal with a lot. But if you're mentally weak, then it can't. You know what I mean? You're going to succumb as soon as you start feeling that power. Like, oh, okay, I don't like this, right? So you have to train your mind. So I don't really think you have a solid body per se. I think ultimately it's a mindset and just being in the best physical peak condition that you're capable of getting for whatever type of fight. You know what I mean? Just be preparedness. Next question, Boxing Phenom 95. Since Little G running from Charlo, LOL, do you think he could face Ward now that he's moving up? It's possible if Ward's willing to move down. And Abel Sanchez, I wrote an article and made a video about it. Abel Sanchez is saying, if we unify and become undisputed with Billy Joe Saunders in June, we're trying to move up to 68. So maybe something like that could get done. Next question is Keith Mathis, one fresh to death. Ego, my brother from another mother. Felix Diaz style going against Terrence Bud Crawford. What do you think would be a good game plan for T-Bud? Also, I'm sure Danny Jacobs' stock didn't drop, but what type of fight should he take next to keep his career in check and further elevate it? T-Bud, Crawford just got to box smart. He got to be like box smart, but also Felix Diaz can turn it up and get aggressive out of nowhere, so he has to be ready for that and figure out what's the best stance, orthodox or southpaw, going against Felix Diaz. He's an Olympic gold medalist, so he's probably going to be in there crafty. He's probably faced different styles and stuff like that. So I think Crawford just needs to be, again, kind of peak shape, mentally strong, and find spots to box, but also take stands like he did in the Gamboa fight. And if, you know what I mean, really try to hurt him and like get your respect early. And that's what I think is the best game plan. Daniel Jacobs' stock definitely didn't drop. Some people thought he won the fight, and he did way better than most people expected. He went the distance and ended Golovkin's 23 knockout in a row streak. So definitely his stock didn't drop. He was supposed to be this glass chin, paper chin master. And Dimitri Perot, Sergio Mora dropped him. You know what I'm saying? And he gave Golovkin the fight of his life. You know what I mean? His best pro fight. So his stock didn't drop. He just needs to fight a top name. Charlo, if Charlo wants to fight him. David Lemieux. Any of those types of fights to stay relevant. Golovkin rematch, but I don't think they want that. They're talking about moving out of the division. So any top name, maybe even a tune-up fight after a tough fight. Tune-up fight, Hassan Indam or somebody. Next question is from Lil Rask _. Hey Ego, love your grind and passion for boxing. Do you think Canelo's slow feet will disadvantage him against Chavez's longer reach? Also, who do you think should be next for Pacquiao? And lastly, who is best or future Australian boxing at the moment? Best or the future Australian boxing at the moment? Cheers, mate. One, Canelo's slow feet. Chavez's reach could be negated because he comes in with his head down. He doesn't necessarily always fight tall. He likes it in the trenches type of war inside fight. So Canelo's slow feet doesn't really have nothing to do with it because Chavez Jr. doesn't really get on his toes. He doesn't move like Lada. He doesn't move like Floyd Mayweather with this level of finesse and footwork. So it'll most likely be a phone booth fight for most of the fight. So it doesn't matter if you have slow feet if your opponent's coming straight to you. And that's what Chavez has done in the past. So I don't think Canelo's slow feet really has nothing to do with the Chavez fight. And then neither Chavez was reached because he doesn't fight like a pristine boxer, like pow, jab, pow. You know what I mean? He's like kind of a gritty, like brawler type. What do I think next for Pacquiao? Me, I want to see him fight a name. Danny Garcia, Broner, Amir Khan, even Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, Keith Thurman. Not Jeff Horn. And last question, I don't know who the future of Australian boxing is. I really don't, because I haven't really seen anybody. I guess Joseph Parker would probably be the best person. And I don't know if he's from Australia or New Zealand. But yeah, I don't really know much about entirely. Like Anthony Mundine and stuff. Like, there's only a handful of guys that I've really seen that even are on a world level. So that's my thoughts. Next question is to Dot. Who has more power, Brook or Spence? I would honestly say their power matches up very evenly. Brook has power, and he has, at welterweight, he has power and he has definite technique in how he delivers, and that's part of it. And same thing with Spence. Spence is heavy-handed, and it's just what it is. So I would say they both have power. It's just like Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman. It's not, they both have power to hurt you. I mean, Keith Thurman knew that. That's why he played the second half of it safe, because he clearly felt it. I even seen an interview. Keith Thurman said post-fight, I felt the wind behind some of Garcia's punches, or he hit me to the body, and I felt the heavy hands. So they both, at this level, when it's a good fight like that, a 50-50 fight, is both guys have power. So I really see their power being pretty much equal. It's just going to be kind of game planning, technique, and whose game plan is effective and who gets off first. Next question, Kota Kid. Ego, is the pressure going to be more on Kovalev than it is going to be on Andre Ward? I would say it's probably equal pressure, maybe a little bit slight more pressure on Andre Ward just because some people feel it was a controversial robbery and stuff like that. So maybe Ward as champion has a little bit more pressure, but I really see the pressure being fairly even, and that's just because Kovalev has been doing all this like protesting and hooting and hollering about he was robbed and it was all by design and American judges suck, they robbed me and stuff like that. So if you lose again to him, but this time in a cleaner, more convincing fashion, then you didn't live up to the expectations you had, you know what I'm saying? So that's just kind of what I think. Next question is from GDDD. Hi, Ego. Keep up the good work. My question is this. I watch all your videos, and I like the fact that you always try to remain neutral in your opinion. I eat, sleep, dream boxing like you, and was wondering how can I be involved in your channel. I have been wanting to work for you in a long time. I am from Canada, Montreal, and I can provide coverages from the boxing scene here. How can we apply the grind don't stop? Keep up the good work, Ego. P.S. Happy birthday. Enjoy your day. Yeah, I mean, I'm all about expansion with the right like-minded people. So just email me. directedbyego@gmail.com. It's the simplest way. And then we can talk. I try to, some of the questions are on kind of a case-by-case basis. You know what I mean? I don't want to get too far off on a question like that. Also, Koto Kid has another question. Ego, do you think Jermell Charlo moving to Tin Goose was what started the rumor about Lada wanting to fight him? I don't think that was a rumor. I think Lada actually said that. Like, I think it was like an interview or tweet or something that he did that he actually said that. So I don't think it was a rumor. And it's possible. I don't know why Jermell left Ronnie Shields and left Texas to fight in LA, but I mean, it looks like he's having fun at the Tin Goose gym, and I mean, more power to him. I just want to see the Charles Hatley fight. I doubt he'll fight Lada. I don't think the fight's going to happen, so it's not worth really even investing too much energy on that fight, because I really don't see it happening. Next question. They hate the King THTK. Should Bud Crawford move up to 147 after his next fight, or should he stay at 140, collect all the belts, and maybe find a way to get a good payday with Broner on pay-per-view? Watch our videos. Yeah, I think people see how good Crawford is, and naturally they want him to move to 147. But Gennady Golovkin, he's a solid fighter, a good fighter too, and he said he wanted to stay and unify the belts, as did Terrence Crawford. So it's not right to say, oh, Golovkin, he can stay and fulfill his vision, which he's very close to doing. He'll realize it if he beats Billy Joe Saunders in June, if they actually fight, and not afford Terrence Crawford the opportunity. And because you see him good, and he already beat the person that was kind of considered the number 2 guy, Victor Postal, now all of a sudden he has to hurry up and move to 147 to fight Errol Spence, like I see in the comment section. It's not right. If he can make the weight comfortably, he's being professional, not missing weight, then he should be able to stay there and collect all the belts. There's only a couple fights that I would want to see Crawford in. That being said, the Ricky Burns, Julius Ndongo fight, and that's just because it'd be a unification. The winner of that fight is a champion. The Adrian Granados and the Felix Diaz fight, and then Broner. If I don't know what weight Broner is going to be fighting at, so I can't really say. But that's just my opinion on the things. Next question is from Better Days 29. Do you think Boo Boo flew over to Europe too late, and maybe he still suffered from the time change? And you sound like the narrator from Bomb First on Machiavelli. Suge shot me. It's not about east or west. It's about power, money, riders, and punks. Now, yeah, it's possible. I'd really have to speak to Andre to determine that. It might have been jet lag, which happens, because I felt jet lag just covering the Golovkin-Jacobs fight. I lost 3 hours going to New York from California. So it definitely affects you. I'm up when I'm supposed to be tired in New York time, and I'm up. And then they're doing press conferences and stuff like that, and I'm tired as hell because it's early to me. And I stayed up late. So yeah, jet lag definitely can affect you, especially going overseas, climate changes and stuff like that. But I don't know, because I haven't talked to him. Next question is from B. Pauly. So we saw Kell get touched by a big puncher, Triple G, and not go down. We know Porter was his biggest welterweight challenge. Who would you say Errol Spence Jr.'s biggest challenge thus far? Also, I've heard Errol Spence Jr. trainers say that he doesn't spar welterweights in training camp. Could that play against him when prepping for a fight with Kell. Team ESJ, hashtag man down, hashtag strap season, hashtag ego is boxing, hashtag new media. Now, I think if anything, it'll help him fighting bigger guys. He fights quality guys too, like John Jackson, who's pretty big, and I thought he was thoroughly outboxing Jermell Charlo. I covered that fight live, and I thought he was looking good in there, John Jackson. So it doesn't hurt him to fight 54-pounders and middleweight, unless he was just getting his ass whooped and he's like taking too much punishment in sparring. But I mean, I think he's probably holding his own, so I don't think it hurts him. I mean, obviously his biggest challenge, Spence's biggest challenge, was probably Chris Algieri or Leonard Bundu, and they weren't even really a challenge. But on paper, those were to be the guys. Now this is his biggest challenge, Kell Brook. So that's what it is. Next question, how do you feel about Brook struggling to make 147? And if Errol Spence goes hard to the body, do you think Spence can stop him? Yes. Or do you feel Kell Brook will be okay? I'm surprised how big Errol is next to Brook. Yeah, I mean, anything's possible. It's really a 50-50 fight. Brook has a shot, Spence has a shot. That's the reality of it, right? But him coming down in weight and off injury, those are other reasons why I lean towards Spence. But Spence is a body snatcher. I said he's kind of this generation's Mike McCallum. He goes to the body well. And it doesn't matter how, like, Brook versus Golovkin. Golovkin got frustrated when Brook was getting off, and Golovkin started trying to impose his natural size advantage, knowing, hey, this is a welterweight getting off on me. So he was like, oh, hell no. And he started to add aggression, and he was just headhunting, to be honest. So Golovkin is a good body puncher when he has the smarts to do it, but I didn't really see him dig into the body, which was dumb. If you're about to fight a welterweight, you might have been able to knock him down, actually get a knockdown on top of your stoppage or whatnot, because again, you could recover from a headshot, but it's hard to recover from a body shot from a naturally bigger guy and a good puncher. Golovkin's pretty surgical with the body shots, but he kind of abandoned his normal methodical technique. Because even if you look at the fight he fought versus Kell Brook, he knew he had a size advantage there. People were, oh, but Kell Brook's his size. No, he's not. He looks like his size and he weighs his size, but he's not naturally his size. Kell Brook even said it before the fight. He was eating whatever he wanted, eating steak and eating up to the division. Golovkin didn't have to change anything because he was already at that weight. That's what some of you guys that are dummies don't understand. It's different, like to eat up, like The Rock when he did the Hercules role. I looked at his diet. It was crazy. He was like eating 24 eggs a day and all kinds of chicken, and he was eating up to get to, let's say he was 270. I don't know his weight, but let's say he was 270. That's different than a guy who's already naturally 270 and he's at 270 consistently. You know what I mean? That guy's already there, while The Rock has to eat up to bulk up to get to that weight. It's different because the other guy does nothing different and he's already at that weight. You know what I'm saying? So it's a good fight. Brook Spence is a good fight. I wouldn't put too much stock on what Golovkin did or didn't do, because Errol Spence fights different. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think Golovkin kind of, when Brook was having success, like in round 2, I think he just got antsy and tried to get him out of there. So he's just like, man, I'm just about to just go hard, and he left himself open and susceptible. So I don't think Errol Spence is gonna. This is his big step up. This is his big test. So I don't think he's gonna do that. Golovkin knew he has a chin and knew that he has a size advantage, so he just kind of went balls to the wall. Pause. But body shots can definitely hurt Kell. And the final question, Ryan Clark. Who you think Jacob should fight next? And I kind of mentioned this earlier. I think David Lemieux is a great fight. I don't know if Al Heyman and Golden Boy can work together. That's a fight I would like to see. I think Jacob's rematching Golovkin. I think people should be pressing for immediate rematch. I said this on Twitter. Floyd Mayweather had controversial, tough fights with Maidana in the first fight and Castillo. And he rematched both of those guys within 4 to 8 months of the same calendar year. And there was almost a pressure to do that. Some people were like, Maidana beat you. It was a draw. Maidana kicked your ass with your gloves, and you didn't want to let him wear gloves. And then he fights him, and then he beats him more convincingly the same year within 8 months. But for Golovkin, he could just sweep his tough fight under the rug, which was controversial. Some people thought Golovkin won. Some people thought he lost, right? Box Nation had him losing. Floyd Mayweather had him losing. I had him losing. Troy King had him losing. Gerald Big Baby Miller had him losing, right? Golovkin losing. And he could just move on with his career. So I think more people should be pressing. Boxing media is fake. More people should be pressing for an immediate rematch like you do with everyone else. Andre Ward, close, disputed fight. Could have went either way in a lot of minds of people. Some people thought Kovalev got jobbed. And Ward, making the mention of retiring, people are, oh, Ward's a bitch, he's a pussy, he's a coward, yada, yada, yada. So why is there all this pressure for Floyd to rematch his tough fights, or Andre Ward to rematch his tough fights? Meanwhile, Golovkin has a disputed tough fight. Even if you had Golovkin winning, you cannot take away the fact that it was a tough fight and his toughest fight. And you cannot evade or avoid the fact that there are a lot of voices in boxing, fans, and all those fighters I just mentioned, like Floyd Mayweather and Box Nation and people respected in the boxing world, who thought Jacobs won. That's the reality of it. So why not clear the air and be like, I'm the better man, I'm not moving up, let me beat Jacobs' ass again. So I hope Jacobs gets a rematch. If he wants it, I hope he gets a rematch. But there's some options. Maybe he takes a lighter touch like a Hassan Indam or just a top 10 ranked guy. But Jacobs didn't really lose stock in his last fight. That's my Monday mail day. I try to get to a lot of questions. Let me know how you guys think I did this week. And if I didn't get to your question this week, I'll try again next week. Just drop your questions. Make sure you share the video, like the video as always. Hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off.